In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
Welcome to the Scarlet Supporters Pembrokeshire podcast. Oh, here we go then with another week of the Westerer is Besterer podcast. And joining me as always is Big Martin, Big M as he likes to be called. Mart, how's it going, my friend?
I'm all right. I mean, I think it's the first time I've ever been called Big M. It's just, me chucking a few random names in the on the screen. I don't mind that one.
It could be a load worse. Couldn't it? Yeah.
Could be.
So, loads of stuff to go through from last week's game, mate, and loads of stuff from the local rugby. So, I got a confession to make first of all. So, normally I do the Saturday scores rundown, and I do that. And so I didn't do it last Saturday because I'd had a couple of beers after during the Argentina game, and then I had a few more after, and then I went to sleep. And so yeah, I didn't actually get. That's
disappointing. I'm really disappointed in you, but
I know
my heart's broken by that.
Yeah,
I mean, I obviously knew about it because this isn't the first time I hear about it. I was really disappointed on Saturday as well because I didn't get to listen to it.
No, I started checking some scores, and then I just kind of I woke up and it was really, really late. So yeah. Anyway, so we'll have a chat through some scores today. Anyway, just so everyone is aware, and there were some big scores from the weekend. But let's do some big stuff to start with. Let's have a chat about the Argentina game. What did you make of the Argentina game, mate?
We won. Pointing out the obvious to start. I mean, defensively, we stood up. Didn't really show much in attack again. And I predicted quite a heavy defeat last week, and I still think if the Argentina that beat England the week before turned up, that would have been a result, because I don't know what happened to that Argentina side, but they just didn't get out the first gear. They look knackered more than anything. I think it's a long old season for some of them, because a lot of their boys play in France, so it's basically a full year-round season. And I just think they were so jubilant last week. It just took a lot out of them.
Yeah, I think that England game was kind of like their season finale sort of thing, wasn't it? And I thought they made a lot of mistakes that, there's two ways of looking at it. Those mistakes could either be Welsh pressure, or it could be, like you say, a little bit of end of season rustiness, a little bit of tiredness. I think it was probably a combination of the two. I think that the Welsh reaction from the week before was quite significant. I thought you could tell one or two people have had a couple of chats and gone, I say, old chap, last week wasn't quite up to standard. And there was a definite reaction from players on Saturday from a defensive point of view. It was more structured. There were more players coming in to stop the ball and putting pressure on Argentina. And I think that was the difference. That was the only difference between that game and the New Zealand game. There was, and again in attack, it was one lucky charge down. One poor kick from the Argentinian on wasn't even a charge. I think it hit his knee or his leg, so it wasn't even like it. Yeah. So, it was a really, really poor kick, but, you take what you can. And it never felt like Argentina were really going to cross the line. Never felt like they were going to come close. I can't remember. Nothing sticks out as a series of massive pressure on the 22. I think there was one bit where we, there were a couple of breaks into the 22 and we stopped it fairly quick. There wasn't a sustained period of pressure in our 22. So, I thought that was much, much better than the week before. So,
yeah, you can only play what's in front of you as well. So, you regardless of how good or how bad a team is compared to the best that they can play, they've still turned up on the day and they've still done the job.
So, I mean, the only Scarlets player that we had actually on the pitch was the Sheriff. And I think the difference in the Sheriff's game this week to the previous week was the previous week he stood out because nobody else was doing the grunt. Nobody else was getting stuck in and doing the work. And this week he kind of blended in a little because a few more people were doing that grunt work. So he still got through a ton of work. The amount of work that he gets through is absolutely phenomenal. And because he's not a big guy. If you've ever stood next to him, you must have stood next to him, and you look at him and you go, he looks so much bigger on the telly.
It's that extra £10 it adds. It really makes a difference. He isn't. He isn't the biggest of chaps, but he's not small either. I don't know what his exact height is. He's like 6 foot and 19, 20 stone, whatever it is. He's a thick set boy. He's got the shoulders to be a front rower, which is why he is a front rower.
Yeah.
But you'd be a bit deceived if you go next to him and when you see the sort of carrying and the work that he gets through.
Yeah, because he's going into tackles where when he's taking ball into contact, it is fully committed. Every single time he takes that ball, he is 100% committed into I'm going through you and I'm going. I'm at least taking 5 yards out of you, sort of a thing. There is no half measure with Ken. And it is total commitment.
Yeah, there's only one gear, and that's 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, it is. And I think that was the impressive thing from last weekend was he didn't stand out because others were doing it as well. I thought Tipuric had a better game at 7. I still don't think he's the best 7 in Wales. I don't even think he's in one of the top 3 7s in Wales. I genuinely don't. But he's there for other reasons, to provide the leadership and to provide a little bit of something different. And I thought he had a better game against Argentina than he did against New Zealand. But then, New Zealand target the back row. They target people like Faletau. They will know, you need to run at him and then sit on top of him while somebody else goes and does other things. They're not stupid. They know how to play against the Welsh back row. And
they know when to, just hold the ankle on the side of the ruck where the ref can't see you and just don't let them get that extra step first. The old dark arts, like. Yeah.
So, I mean, Argentina are a tough side. They are a tough side, and that was a very similar side to the side that beat England. So, like you say, it may well have been a bit of fatigue. It may well have been a bit of, I don't know, complacency having coming off beating England. And but they definitely looked out of sorts. But at the same time, I thought the pressure, the line speed in defence was, I can't say it's a lot more fast. I think it was more consistent. Whereas the week before, there'd be the odd 1 or 2 where you'd have 4 or 5 players going up and putting pressure. And against Argentina, it was every single play there was a challenge on the ball. We were putting pressure on the ball every single play. And I think that's, that does wear you down over a period of time where you're just like, I can't do anything in this game. There's players all around me. I can't do anything. So, I think respect where it's due. I thought, the defence was a lot better. And like you say, attack. Yeah, what was there in attack? There wasn't much there in attack. I think the only times we really made any distance was off Argentina kicks or set pieces. We never looked like creating something off set piece.
No,
it was
it's
all...
like early in the first half. When Argentina kicked long in the first time, Zamet had the ball in a bit of space. He did look to have a run. I don't know whether or not he was had a bit of a slap on the wrist at half time and said, calm down. But he didn't seem to do much of that in the second half. So I think it was more of a just control the game rather than take chances.
But then that's what you want from him. You want him, if he's going to be on the pitch, you want him taking those chances, don't you? You want him running at people. You want him challenging that back line and going, because if you're in a position where you kick to Zamet and you know that he's going to run back at you, your defence doesn't hold back. You come up to that defensive line, and then that leaves a bit more space behind for a kick. So it's one of those things where if their defence is holding back, particularly with somebody like Zamet and Dyer, but if their defence is sitting back and not chasing up that kick fully, then those are the boys you want running at them. You do want them running from your own 10-yard line and having a crack at them, because that's where space is created. And I think he broke the line 3 times, I think.
Yeah, he made a few breaks.
Yeah. And I think that's, if he's going to play there, and it looks like he will, stick there, apparently, then you want him to provide something different to Halfpenny. Halfpenny isn't a line breaker, is he?
I mean, don't get me wrong. His offense as a fullback has improved over the last few years, but not to the level of someone like Zamet or even Adams. He doesn't have that top end pace to really threaten and make those full breaks. Half break here or there, yeah, he is very capable, but to cut the line and potentially finish off, it's not something that Halfpenny does.
No, but then he will give you another kicking option that, best will in the world, Zamet is never going to offer. I
don't know. He's still a young man. I mean, just think, Halfpenny started out on the wing himself, didn't he? And he developed into this the type of player that we see now. So I wouldn't like for Zamet to focus on his defence as much as Halfpenny does, because I think he'd just take away too much from what is good about him. But obviously there's a lot of time left in that boy's career, and I can't see a ceiling for him at the minute. So who knows how far he can go.
Yeah. So looking at this week's game then, obviously the side's been put out early, and there's a bit more Scarlet's interest in the side, and it's a bit more of a younger side, a bit more of a there's a Pivac called it the spine of the side is still there, which I can see, I get. What do you make of the side for Georgia? Obviously, Georgia, very, very different side to Argentina, but still very, very strong in certain areas. So what do you make of that side?
I mean, I was a little disappointed, but more as a Scarlet than anything else. I would have loved to have seen Blacker and Costellow get a start together. Just looking through it, there's a few players who are, like, obviously not just the Scarlets, but outside as well, like Bradley Roberts and Joe Hawkins, and you're thinking, well, these boys are not going to get any proper game time now during this series. So, just having them in to train for 5 weeks, is that really that beneficial to them?
Well, they've got Roberts on the bench, and I would expect to see changes at half time rather than at 60 minutes. for that game.
Yeah, I reckon Pivac is hoping that the game is not wrapped up, but potentially safe by the halftime 50-minute mark and just unload the entire bench.
Yeah, because let's take a little look to see what Scarlett's interest we got. Obviously, I would have thought that this would have been an ideal game to rest Ken. But he's put him in from the start, and I think that's a bit of respect to Georgia more than anything, because we know they're coming with a big pack, a big front row that kind of eats a whole horse for breakfast, sort of a thing. They're not small boys in Georgia, and I can never understand why some of these Eastern European teams aren't doing a bit better. They breed them big in that part of the world.
I think it's the exact same reason why we are always slow starters. They don't get enough time together.
Maybe.
You tend to see with the likes of Romania as well, that when they do qualify for a World Cup, they are very, very forward orientated, and they can't hold their own against the top nations for a good while. So having that 8-week preparation time is absolutely massive for them, and I would like to think that there were better ways in which we handled the European competitions, like the Six Nations and the ones below, because if you have a good season, there's no reward for it, which I find quite disappointing.
Well, you would have thought that we've got the autumn internationals, so whoever wins the Six Nations second division, if you're the what do they call it, the European
Nations Championship,
that's the one, European Nations Cup, so whoever wins that could slot in to play in the autumn internationals. I know it's kind of a bit like these games are arranged 12, 18 months, 2 years in advance and whatever, but there should be an option there where you just go, right, well, whoever wins that championship slots in and plays, England, Ireland, Wales through the autumn nations. That I think that would actually add a little bit of gravitas to that championship and would make these games a little bit more interesting. Because you're playing the best of what's coming up. So,
yeah, I mean, World Rugby are supposed to be all about developing World Rugby. They should be looking. I know we got the second tier with US, Canada, the Pacific Islanders, and whatnot, but it is just there's so much talent in Europe for developing rugby, and we've seen them have victories against Italy. We've seen them, beat the Pacific Islanders, Tonga, and Samoa, and it seems like, yes, we've done that, we've taken a step up, and then they just go straight back down to what they used to. So there's no that progression planning.
Yeah, and it's not like it's difficult. It's not like it's not like they're at the end of the earth. They're quite close, relatively quite close to a lot of other teams where I say we could be playing people like Georgia, Romania. I think Portugal are playing Portugal, USA for the last place in the. So
that's
there's
on Friday, is it?
I think it is. I'm sure it's Portugal, USA for the last place in the World Cup.
The final qualifier tournament.
Yeah, but it's a shame that we don't get to play some of these teams a bit more often. But then again, you've got to look at it and go, there's only so many games in the season that the national team can play because they've still got to go back down and play for regions. So I'm just looking at Georgia's last couple of fixtures. So they beat Uruguay 34-18 a couple of weeks ago, and last Saturday they lost narrowly to Samoa 20 points to 19. So they've had a couple of Uruguay and Samoa are not rubbish sides. They're decent sides themselves. So
Uruguay have been front runners behind Argentina before now in South America. So they do know how to play.
Yeah, and Samoa know how to throw the ball around, as we found out to our cost in the past. So, that team that comes on Saturday is coming fully loaded. It's coming with the enthusiasm and the want to come and turn us over. So it's not going to be an easy game at all.
No, they're not here to make up numbers. Not one bit. They're here to take a scalp.
Yeah. So, which is probably why players like Ken Owens, George North, Thomas Williams, Rhys Zammit are left in the side. I think the interesting bit for me, there's obviously Josh Macleod, which is the interesting bit, but we talk about him in a minute. But the other interesting bit is that Alan Wynne-Jones has been left out again, and I like the legacy that Alan Wynne-Jones is going to leave, not just as a player but as a person. He's a hard trainer. He's dedicated to the game. He's dedicated to his region. The offers that he must have had at the peak of his career, must have been massive. But he said no, he was going to stay and play. All right, he's playing for the Ospreys. We can't all be perfect, but the man, the integrity of the man is unquestionable. And that's when he gets to the stage where it's the second game on the trot now where he's been rested. Just kind of makes me question: I can't see him going to the World Cup. If that World Cup squad is selected on ability and capability, our players in form, he's an excellent regional player, but he's not an international player anymore.
No, he's not, which is quite sad. And to add to the type of person he is, the way he handles himself in some controversial situations, like what happened with Marler a few years ago, and he handled that perfectly, and he will probably be remembered as one of the best Wales has ever produced. Not just for longevity, but just for how he's played. It's not easy to go on a couple of Lions tours either, so you've always got to add that into the fact. And it is disappointing on a personal view for him. But he's got over 150 caps. He's what is he, 36? I'm not sure exactly how old he is.
Yeah.
But the mantle has got to be passed at some point.
Yeah, and that's why I thought this would be an ideal game to say, a bit of a final game for him, sort of a thing. Do you know what I mean?
Not quite a farewell, but a mark, like a sort of like a testimonial sort of thing.
Yeah, I would go so far as saying that he should have started this game, and then before the game gone, this will be my last game, and it would have filled the crowd, because so many people would have seen his last game. I just think if he tries to go for the World Cup, he needs to do something a lot different to what he's doing now in order to make the World Cup. And you look at the players that are coming through. So we've got David Jenkins on the bench for Saturday. We've got Shunza out injured. We've got Ben Carter. You've got Will Rowlands coming through now. Adam Beard. What's the other guy they brought into the...
Rhys Davis.
Yeah, you got Rhys Davis. You got the two Price boys down with us. There's a glut now. All of a sudden, there's a glut of young players coming through that are starting to fight for that position, and there hasn't been a position to fight for quite some time.
And I'd probably argue even right now it's not a position that has to be fought over. Just because they've always been selected. Like I don't particularly think any of our locks have been above good in the opening 2 games. And I really think that, I was quite surprised to see David Jenkins in the 23 just because he's only here for the week. And, he's going back to Exeter after Georgia. I thought that if anyone, Rhys Davies was going to get the game time. And I think if you look at Alan Wynne and how he needs to really survive to get to the World Cup, I think that happens more at the Ospreys than it does with Wales. I think he needs to start developing more as an impact player if he wants to make it. I think he needs to really be saying, no, I want to be in the squad, but I need to be able to have that 25, 30 minutes of high energy, high impact performance. Because I don't think he can really do it over the 80 anymore.
No, and maybe that might be the solution for him, and that might be his route to the World Cup. And like when he does come on, you can still see that fire in his eyes. You can still see that he wants to do it. But I think the last 3 or 4 times he's come on, he gives away like 2 penalties within 5 minutes of being on the pitch. And there's just that getting up to speed and getting into that game. And anyway, he's not going to be there this weekend. No. Talking more about players that's not there than the players that are there. But so the player I do want to talk about is Josh Macleod.
Oh yes,
I think he's kind of gone under the radar with people like Jack Morgan have come through and Tommy Raffel have come through and Thomas Young Thomas Young's not even in the squad, but Josh Macleod is a player that can play all 3 positions across the back row. And having played 2 positions across the back row, so number 8 and blindside I used to play, that's hard enough switching from one to the other, especially at scrum time, because you're looking in different places, you're lining up differently. Your line out control is different. So to add a 3rd position in there, and I'd say probably 7 is his best position. So you look at our back row, Jack Morgan, Justin Tipuric, and Josh Macleod.
3 sevens.
We got 3 sevens on the pitch, You
hope that translates into some turnovers.
Well, yeah, especially with a big, heavy pack. You would hope that the tactic now is let's move that ball wide early, use the likes of Zammit and Cuthbert and Adams and put pressure on that outside channel, knowing that we've got 3 sevens happy to get there and they've got a big heavy pack to move around. Do you know what I mean? I think if we knacker out that pack in the first 20 minutes, we'll start to run riot. And I can see Macleod getting on the score sheet. I really can, just because he is everywhere. And this is his 3rd time he's selected now for a Welsh start.
Yeah. What was it? First time he got injured in the Scarlets' final game before meeting up. The second time, it was like an hour after being named in the side. And, I'm not saying anything now until after the game.
Yeah, as I say, if I was him, I'd be like, nope, not doing anything now. I'm staying in my room until Saturday morning, end of.
I'm staying in my padded room.
Yeah, and I'm not doing anything. But he's just such a dynamic player. And we saw it a couple of times, and it was only because of injuries, it was only a couple of times where he played with Jack Morgan at the Scarlets last year. Was it season before?
Year,
there was a couple of times where they played together where it was an all-action sort of a back row. We had Cal Maffoni in between the 2 of them, just doing what he does, and those 2 were just awesome. Nothing got through them, and the slightest sniff of a turnover, one of them was there. So you had Tipuric into that mix now, and again, Tipuric, I put him in the same brackets as Alan Wynne-Jones because he's not the player he used to be. He's in that side now for something different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I thought he was quite anonymous against Argentina, but sometimes that can be a good thing. You're not being noticed for anything bad. You're not being noticed for anything good, so you're just doing your job. which you're always going to get a few players like that in every game. But no, he used to be the jackler, like especially if we go back to the days when it was him and Warburton being paid together. Tipperick was the man that went for the ball, and now it seems as though he's more of a 6.5 than anything else.
6.5, yeah, it is. But I like the idea of putting 3 7s on the pitch. I do, especially with Josh Macleod can adapt to that number 8 kind of position. We've spoken before that we don't have a great big massive ball carrying number 8. That's why I'd like to see Shunza in there. 6'6", 19 stone. Just there you go, son. Go have a play with the opposition. Josh Macleod offers something different, something more like Faletau, where Faletau's not that big, heavy ball carrying number 8. He's your fancy footer around the corner. Let's find the break. He'll get you out of trouble. And I think Macleod is very similar to that, but just a bit more committed over the ball to winning the ball. So, yeah, I'm liking that back row.
I'm not 100% sold on it, but I am very, very happy to see Macleod get his cap. And I think one thing we're going to see on the weekend is his speed from tackle to jackal, because that's what he got picked for in the first place 2 years ago. His speed off the floor and over that ball is phenomenal. Well, and while he can't play 8, I'm not going to say he can't play 8 because he has done it several times. I mean, I would put that as a very, very safe third best position in the back row for him. I would much rather see him on the flank because I think he can do better work. It's just seeing what type of game plan and what style of play Pivac is asking him to do is going to determine what we see.
Well, if you think along those lines, and then we've got Priestland at 10, which I think is a bit of an odd selection. I can see why, because I'd say Priestland is there to move the ball wide or to control the kicks into the corner. So it is playing that wider game that will spread their pack further across the pitch and create gaps in the middle. But like I said, we got Costellow and Blacker on the bench. I would have loved to have seen them have a start and have a good run out, same as yourself, because I think the pace that Blacker has got is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Costello's not slouch either.
No, exactly. And you put those two on the pitch, and it's a little bit like waiting for a firework to go off. You something's going to go off at some time. Something, they're going to create stuff. They're going to find a gap. Especially Costellow. Costellow just seems to find gaps. Well, he's only about 2'6" anyway, isn't he? So he can get through gaps. But do you know what I mean?
I'm not going to overhype him and say he's going to be Welsh number 10 for the next 10 years. But I think he is the type of 10 that we have missed for a little while. I know Patchell showed good signs a few years ago, but we haven't had a proper running 10 for a while. And Costellow is very much in that mould, and he has shown that he is very capable of doing that job.
And what it does is particularly when you've got those two players on the pitch, is it ties in their back row. It creates space for your centres, because if you're a 7 and you're going up against let's say you're going up against someone that is constantly going to pass the ball, you can afford yourself a couple of extra inches away from that ruck. You know that you're going out on the 10.
You can trust your prop or your inside man to just have that extra cover on the gate as well.
Yeah. Whereas if you've got someone like Dane Blacker there, you're constantly eyes on him. And then if he's got Costellow outside and you're going, right, I've got to be constant eyes on him, and now I've got to be constant eyes on him, and that kind of 9-10 channel suddenly becomes a danger zone that you need to defend heavily. But normally, you don't need to defend the 9-10 channel a lot, because if it gets out to 10, it's either going as a kick or it's going outside. So you don't need to defend that 9-10 channel. You'll defend the 10-12 or the 12-13 channel. That's where you'll look at defending heavily. And when you put Blacker on the pitch, you know you've got to defend that 9-10. Yeah. And he's almost like a really good version of Thomas Williams when he's on form. You know, he just seems to make those breaks, make those gaps, and he pops up in the strangest little places. He runs support. He does so. You just like you watch a game and you go, why is he passing that? Oh well, right there you go. You know, Black has caught it. He's away. You know, where did he come from? Sort of a thing. So
he's got that sevens experience as well, so hasn't he, Blacker? So he does hold his depth, and he has got that acceleration to match his pace.
Yeah, and I think he's the kind of player that we need. And I think it's good now. I hope he has a good game, and Pivac's talking about this is about developing people for the World Cup. They want to look at people for the World Cup, and if you put Blacker, Hardy, and Thomas Williams in there, you've got three very different scrum halves. If you then look at Costellow, Priestland, and Anscombe, again, three really different outside halves, and you can really start to create different games around those players. I think that the place where we lack a lot of depth is number 8. We've got a ton of depth at flank, on both flanks. We've got more than enough players on both flanks. Number 8, we've got Faletau. And that's your key connector between your forwards and your backs, So we got lots of options at 9 and 10. Number 8, maybe not so much, So I think that's probably...
We've got a lot of blind sides who can play 8. We've got Wainwright, Moriarty, those types of players who are mainly 6s, but they do a job at 8 as well. And then we have got some of the younger boys, like we saw Ratty called into the squad over the summer. It's just unfortunate that he didn't have much game time before this squad selection. And you've got Morgan Morris with the Ospreys, who is another one who's similar to Faletau in the way that he moves.
Yeah. But we don't have a great big mass. I'd say probably Moriarty is our only big ball carrying number 8. I say Faletau isn't your crash ball number 8. He's your dancy feet, get you out of trouble, put you into space. He's a high skill, high energy number 8. He's not a crash ball going to give you 10 meters every time kind of a number 8. That Calamafoni type player that we are blessed with at the Scarlets. And you kind of need that, because if your second rows aren't going to do it, somebody's got to take that on. I said Moriarty is probably the only other player that fits that role, and he's not in the squad. So, I think it's a big opportunity for Josh. I really do. And I hope he takes it, and I hope, Dane and Sam kind of turn in a decent performance, because I'm absolutely convinced that those two are going to be the future for Welsh rugby and for Scarlets. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there for them. But
massive opportunity for them. I mean, like we've said in recent weeks, Blacker has been the best Scarlet scrum half for a little while now, and arguably the informed Welsh scrum half for a good year. And then Costellow taking over the mantle from Patchell at the Scarlets. And it seems as though, he's taken that space with Wales now.
And then we've got Halfpenny on the bench as well to come on. So, would you risk him? Would you risk him?
I think they don't have a choice, because Zammit isn't available for Australia because he's English based. I think they've got to get some minutes on the pitch for him.
Is that Australia game out of the? I thought
Yeah.
the New Zealand game was the one that was out of time.
No, it's Australia because all the regions are in South Africa next week as well.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that does kind of throw up a lot of. But I thought the agreement was that they were allowed to be released as long as they were playing. If they were named in the team, then they could stay with the squad. Or is that is that midweek?
I have no idea what that is because these boys still go back doing the follow week in the Six Nations. So, they're all going. I think it's already been alluded to in some of the press conferences with Pivac that, these 5, I think now 6 boys with David Jenkins are all, going home sort of after the Georgia game.
Yeah, which is a shame because you do want to keep them together and really see what they can do, don't you?
Yeah, it's like I don't understand why we're not playing. I know they want the 4th international, but I don't understand why they can't do it like Scotland have done it the week earlier.
Yeah,
just and have it played against the Georgia or whatever second tier nation you're playing, just because you can put your fringe and your new boys in first game, and then you can see all the way through. And it makes a bit more sense just because we haven't got those players for the regions for that week anyway because they're in training. So they have essentially taken every regional player away from the regions for 2 weeks because they're all in South Africa with this one extra game.
Yeah, and that's you would have hoped that somebody somewhere would have gone, do you know what? Let's play New Zealand the last week. So we have let's play Georgia on the first week, or Fiji on the first week, or Western Samoa on the first week, and like I say, and then build
Western Samoa. You going back in time now, boy?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Let's play Japan, or let's play a side that's going to put up a challenge, but not. They're not, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. Let's play them first, then Argentina, and then. Let's play New Zealand when we're on form, all singing, all dancing. Let's really go for it. Not the way we've done it.
We are so well known for being slow starters. So just play into that. Don't have the big boys up first.
Yeah.
Because, all right, we might be able to pull off a scalp here or there, but consistently, I don't know if we've won more than 1 or 2 opening games of the Autumn Internationals in the last 10 years.
Yeah, we do tend to not do. And then we used to play the Friday night game. So the Georgia game traditionally would have been a Friday night game where you change everything around and they put it on the Friday night. And that has been some of the worst rugby that I think I've seen Wales play ever. Genuinely, the 16-all draw against Fiji a good number of years ago now. Took my boys to watch that on a Friday night. Both of them fell asleep during the game.
No way.
It was that poor. It was such a poor game that I went down to get a couple of hot dogs on the half-hour mark. And the hot dog seller was like, "Yeah, we're all out, mate. We've sold out." So, what do you mean? I mean, it's a big game. He said, "Yeah, people are just piss bored. They're just so fed up with this game." So there's always that danger with this Georgia game in the middle, which you probably wouldn't get at the start. If it was at the start, it would be a good game. But
no, it's like this is generally for a lot of the rugby people because, as we know, it's not. The Principality doesn't get filled up with rugby people. It just gets filled up with people who are there for the occasion and there for the drink. This Georgia game, this second tier game is cheaper, and it's generally the first time that the actual rugby lovers are bringing their families and their kids to these games just to get that experience. It's like my kids have only been to a Scotland game, and that was literally the only because we had an option of free tickets. You know, I wouldn't voluntarily take him to a big game just because I know what the Principality can be like. I've experienced it myself when I was younger. I mean, I'm sure you have too. It's not a place for families on those days.
Well, I don't know. I took the boys and my daughter, actually. No, we all went up for the weekend, and it was me and the boys. We went to watch a New Zealand game a couple of years ago, and it was okay. It was actually all right. But I think it was okay because we got into the ground early. We set it out as a birthday present for both of the boys. So it was a full weekend in Cardiff. It was Friday night, Saturday night hotel sort of thing. Nice, decent hotel with a swimming pool, that kind of weekend. So we got into the stadium early and got to the seats. So I thought, this is quite nice. So I went and got myself a couple of beers, and I thought, all right, starting to fill up now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go and get another 2 beers, and that'll keep me going for the game. I'll be done. And I nearly missed kickoff. It took me, I think it was half an hour before kickoff. I went to get the beer, and it happened to be that the little area with the steps up to my gate, if you like, were right opposite the bar, so I could see into the stadium. I'm standing queuing for the bar, and I can see they're all lining up on the bar, and I'm like, there's still 4 people in front of me, and I need to get some. And the queue was massive. I think there's bits like that stadium experience was meant to be set up to not have those issues. It was meant to be a new modern stadium that would be able to cope with massive amounts of people at the same time. And then it just doesn't seem to do it. So, yeah, I'm like you say, more families and what have you, more kids will see the Georgia game than they will have the New Zealand game. Possibly there were quite a few seats left for the Argentina game, but hopefully, quite a few people can go and see the Georgia game, and it'll be a good game. It'll be a good experience. It'll be a good it'll be a damn sight better than that Fiji 16-all draw. I can assure you of that. So the one player we haven't spoken about that we said we wanted to have a chat about was David Jenkins on the bench. So 19 years old, captained Exeter last weekend, youngest captain in the Gallagher Premiership. He's a bit of a big boy. He's good mates with Shunza, because him and Shunza played Wales 20s second row last year, I think.
Yeah.
So what do you make of him?
I haven't seen a great deal of him, I will be honest, but what I have seen of him, I am very impressed with, especially for his age. He gets through a lot of work, and he has always taken up that leadership role, even within Exeter. And to see him get captain last week, it just says tremendous amount of things towards his character. And he is 19, so he's still got another few years of growing left. So we might see another inch or two, and no doubt he's going to get stockier, a bit bigger as well. And he's already thrown himself around, so he could be a real talent for Wales over his career. I was not on the fence, but I was hoping at one point that we would let him develop with Exeter and then come in after the World Cup for him. But seeing some of the performances of our locks, and now with Rowlands unfortunately injured, it is good to get him in the setup just for him to experience that and to get a cap, which, like I said earlier, I'm quite surprised at. I thought it would have gone to Rhys Davies this week if either of the two of them were going to get it. But I am really looking forward to seeing him play.
Yeah, I am too. And we spoke earlier in the season about, we haven't really replaced Jake Ball at the Scarlets or at national level. And I would say that players like Shunza and Jenkins are probably Jake Ball Mark II. They are the big ball carrying, heavy, fast second rows that can do some damage on a pitch. They're intelligent players. Yeah. So, we all know what's going on with Gallagher Premiership sides at the minute, in terms of finances, in terms of, they just can't retain players because, they're all in so much debt. I know so him and Shuns are both in Exeter University. Exeter University is basically the Exeter B team, the reserve side. So, I would hope that when he's finished his university career, that somebody is saying to him, I come and join the Scarlets because we've got the Price boys,
Morgan Jones,
yeah, and then you throw those two into it, and then you've got Fafita and Lousy that can kind of drift in between second row and back row, and all of a sudden you think, actually, from a Scarlets point of view, we're a little bit overstocked in the engine house,
Yeah, so that would be a dream. I can't see us getting both. I can see us getting at least one of them, probably Jenkins, and I could probably see Shunza going to Cardiff, if I'm totally honest, just because that is where he's from, and we know these boys are going to be coming back. It would be nice if they could stay with Exeter and reward Exeter for putting all the faith in them. But that's not the way Welsh rugby works anymore. If they want to play for Wales, which they both obviously do, they're going to have to come back at some point. Yeah. So I think we are going to get Jenkins and Cardiff are going to get Shunza just because the stocks of locks at the minute.
Yeah. I think Newport have been kind of bulked up. Ospreys are fine in the second row. And I said, I can see in a couple of years' time, one of the Price boys or Morgan Jones, making that step. They're not the wild, exciting, crazy second rows, but they're that rock solid second row that you sometimes you just need somebody that's going to give you 5 meters on every ball. So
yeah, I know we're talking a lot about David Jenkins because he's being 19, but we have got Morgan Jones and Jack Price who are 23 and 22, so they're still babies for locks. And David Jenkins even more so. I mean, so I don't think Tom Price will ever make it, but I think Jack Price and Morgan Jones maybe not getting picked for the squad anytime soon, but being in the training environment would probably be a good thing just to assess where their ceiling is and whether or not they could feature in the future.
So lots of positives for the future, lots of positives for Saturday. So what's your prediction for Saturday then? What's your...
I think it's going to be a real hard-fought game. I think, it's going to be very much the same as Argentina. It's going to be very defensively focused for the first half. And we're going to try... I think we're going to kick them to death.
In a nice way.
Yeah, in a rugby term.
Not in a legal way.
In a legal way. But no, I can see us probably being 2, maybe 3 scores up at half time, and then getting all the bench on, and hopefully play a bit of decent rugby.
Yeah, I think that's we could do with something to inspire us against Australia, because Australia lost against Italy, didn't they? So
awesome game.
Yeah, but they're going to have the same kind of reaction as that we had after the New Zealand game. So, that final game of the series is going to be quite interesting, and this weekend it'll be a good setup for it. So I'm going to go 30 points to 7 is my prediction. 30 points to 7. I think we will do the job quite comfortably, and then they'll have a consolation try somewhere near the end. But yeah, that's my.
I was pretty close, but I'm gonna have to change it now because it was way too close to what you said.
Yeah.
I was thinking 29-6.
All right.
But I'll change that now. I'll give him a try and I'll give us an extra one. So I'll go 36-13.
Oh, there you go. Cool. Okay. So let's have a little look at community rugby over the weekend because
The
obviously,
reason we're all here.
yeah, and I obviously didn't get to put the scores out over the last weekend. So let's have a quick run through last weekend's games. So Narberth lost away to Ystalyfera 21-19, and that was a bit unexpected because we all expected Narberth to win that one quite comfortably. But you were saying you read the match report from that Narberth game.
And with what was effectively the last move of the game, George MacDonald and Narberth crossed the try line to win the game, only for it to be brought back for a forward pass.
Which is just heartbreaking, isn't it? It's heartbreaking.
It is, and I never been there. Probably not going to go there anytime soon. But I'm in love with Narberth. Narberth rugby, at least. And it does break my heart to see that result, just because of the good work they have put in so far this season. But it's every league's a tough league, and you can't drop off. I mean, there's another match down in Division 3, which a little local derby between Larne and St. Clair's that was very similar. But every league is so tough. The teams are very, very close.
Well, it leaves Narberth in 5th in the championship, but not too far away. I think the top two sides, Neath, Pontypool, they're 37 and 35 points, so they're a stretch away from everywhere else. And then you've got Bargoed, Cross Keys, and Narberth, 29, 26, 24 points respectively. So, like you say, it's a close league. And I can see Narberth. I can see a lot of changes in that league as we go through the season. Second half of the season is going to be massive.
Looking at it early on, it looked to be Neath, Pontypool, and Bargoed as the top runners, but it seems that Neath and Pontypool have put their foot down a little bit more, and Bargoed have ended up in that fight for third place with Cross Keys and Narberth.
And it's good to see Narberth in there. Really good to see
definitely.
Narberth in there, because that's where we want to be. So
it's
cool. So let's have a look at Division 1. So the Crymych Llangennech game was postponed due to the passing of the Crymych chairman, I think it was.
President.
So that game will be replayed. So there's no points awarded on that one. It is a postponed game that will be replayed. Pembroke, just another kicking at home at the hands of Aberystwyth, 19 points to 73. 73 is a big score, and it's not the biggest score that we've got on the table this week.
No, it's not.
It's I just don't know where. There was a couple of seasons ago, Pembroke were playing Aberystwyth, and they were close games, they were tight games, and they're just not anymore. So
Pembroke got a really young squad then? They just come into fruition, or is our Pembroke Quins that I'm thinking of?
No, it's the Quins have as well, but Pembroke have had to change a lot of players. A lot of the players that took them up to Division 1 have kind of either left or retired or just got to the stage of a career where they're not playing a full game, and just think that follow through hasn't been there. There isn't the player flow through to that first team that you need to sustain your position up there. I think they'll probably drop a division and then have 2 seasons and then come back up and then have 2 seasons and then go back down and have 2 seasons. I think it's going to be like that for a couple of years until they start to develop a youth system that brings players through, because the players are around. There are enough players in the Pembroke catchment area who want to play at that level. Pembroke takes players from the Quins, from Haverfordwest, from Milford, from Tenby. Some Narberth players come over. So there are enough players there that want to kick on. And the coaching system is actually quite good. it is just a case that you have to have that constant flow of players coming through, and the pipeline is a little bit thin at the minute, shall we say? But so yeah, Whitland same again. They lost at home 34-17 against Pencloud. Pencloud is a team you should be beating.
Got Pencloud?
Oh, I've got Pencloud. Yeah, I've got it the same.
Wanderers.
Yeah.
Definitely Wanderers.
Why have I got that in there? I ignore what I said on that, because I said it last week as well, and you corrected me. And for some reason, I've left it on my sheet and just read off my sheet. But there we go. Anyway, Whitland lost at home 34-17, and they really should. Yeah, I think that they're if we end up with relegation this year, it's between Pembroke and Whitland have beaten Pembroke. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't all bad on the day from Whitland. It was 17-all going into half time. So, they were in it for large periods. It's just, they just tailed off for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, if we look at the table, Crumach is still joint top with Llangennech, like we said last week. We've got Aberystwyth then in 1, 2, 3, 4. Aberystwyth in fifth as well. But they're only 2 points behind the leaders. That's a really, really tight league. And then we drop to the bottom of the table, and we've got Whitland 1 place off the bottom on 6 points, and Pembroke still to pick up a point on the bottom of the table. So, yeah, it's tight in the middle. It's tight at the top. But, yeah, it's looking quite dark at the bottom.
What is it? From first to 8th, there's 5 points. Jesus, that is tight.
That's what I mean. There's a couple of, and you look. So Llangennech have got a game in hand. 2 games in hand? Crumach a game in hand. Newcastle Emlyn got a game in hand. Velin-Foyle, Hendy all got games in hand. So that table could change quite rapidly as those things are. Llangennech could, 2 games. 2 games in hand, they could stretch a hefty lead, or they could quite easily fall 4 places if they lose to them.
Yeah, it was one of those games is against Crumach, who's right behind them.
Yeah, so that's an exciting, and that's how you want it to be, isn't it? You want those leagues to be exciting, interesting, and more of that we need. And if we look at Division 2, so let's drop down in Division 2. Now, I believe I forecast a Fishguard win away at Carmarthen Athletic.
Yes.
I did, yes. I believe that was me. And they, so 13-6, again, a tight game. But fair play. I think Fishguard are targeting their games well this year. I think the team that they put out in the Cup, or didn't put out in the Cup, very, very different to what turns up in the league. And we spoke to Sush earlier in the season, and he said it's a small squad, but it's a good squad. So sometimes you've got to, plan what you can do. Tenby beat Milford 16-0 at home. I'm surprised that Milford didn't get on the scoreboard there. Really, really surprised. But excellent win for Tenby. Superb win for Tenby on that, because again, it's competitive, and that's what you need now. And this is how competitive that league is, right? So a couple of games ago, Tenby, Milford and Fishguard were all kind of mid-table. Milford have had a couple of bad games, and they're 1 off the bottom. You've got Fishguard still in mid-table on 14 points. You've got Tenby now in 4th on 17 points. But again, in that league, you've got Pontedilles and Kidwelly kind of stretching away at the top. So it is a fight for 3rd place. But, Tenby on 17, Nantgaredig on 19 points, and you've got Mumbles on 16, Buryport on 14, Fishguard on 14, Lucker on 14, T. Croix on 13. They're all within touching distance of that 2nd place. You've got 2 at the top, 3 at the bottom, and then everybody else in the middle.
Can fight for it, because there's a couple of games in hand in there as well, which will change the look of the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's they're turning into actually really competitive leagues throughout the season. And, full respect, that's what you need to get people back in through the gate. But people need to know that these are really competitive.
Meaningful.
Yeah.
Like it's good that we haven't got just that one team seems to be running away with it in these leagues. There's at least one or two behind them, really saying you're not having this easy, and then for everyone else to more or less say, well, you can't forget about us. We are still going to be doing a job, and they are showing that the fact that so many teams have some of the results we've looked at and we've gone, oh, didn't expect that. You've been on a bad run. Where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, having said that, when we then drop into Division 3, some of the scores in Division 3 are just insane. So Aberaeron against Langham, so it's a long old trip from Langham up to Aberaeron. I think there must have been a couple of boys going to the Welsh game, because 95-0, is that's just
and that is a massive advert for not having rugby during international weekends.
Yeah, well, Langham have started being quite competitive lately. They, they haven't been. I think they've won a couple of games as well. So to go and take a pasting like that away that's a hard pill to swallow. But sometimes you just got to take those and go, right, okay, we go on to next week. We'll put that one out of our heads. We'll go on. We'll see what we can do. Langham have been taking players on license from other clubs, and maybe they couldn't do that last week.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know the full story behind it, but I'm hoping that, put that one out of the head, and we'll go on to next week's game, and we'll go from there, sort of thing. So, Cardigan won at home, 26-5 against Llanybother. Top of the table clash, then Larne and St Clair's. So
that was cracking. From what I've seen, Larne had the upper hand come half time. They were 6-3 up. There weren't that many posts, but there was a couple on Twitter, and I was trying to follow it on Saturday. And I was literally I was on the edge of my seat just waiting for the few results that were coming through, because I didn't know what time any of these had kicked off, because there were so many different random half-time, full-time scores coming through.
Yeah.
And I was just waiting. Oh, come on, just do them. And the final result came, and I was just 10-6 St Clair's. Leading 6-3 half time, and one try was the difference in the second half. That just shows the level that Larne have been able to pull out this year. And I really didn't expect Larne to be such strong opposition for St Clair's. I know it's a local derby and all that, but I still didn't expect it to be that close.
Yeah, well, I thought it would be, just because, there's a lot of bad feeling between the two. I'd be interested to see how many yellow cards were actually given in that, because the chances of no yellow cards being given in that game was quite remote. But
you never know; it might have only been reds.
Yeah. That's the type of game where that would happen. Yeah, but yeah, I'd say competitive. Two good sides going at each other. Really competitive game. So yeah, cracking game that. Quins lost at home to Haverfordwest 21-3, and then St David's 73-3 at home against Lampeter.
Got on the scoreboard.
Yeah, just St David's been playing really well. They've had some really good games through the season, some good results, and then boom, 73-3. But they're another side that have been relying on players on permits and what have you.
You've got to take into consideration what they were rock bottom, didn't get a win, I think, if I'm right, in the shortened season last year. So they are still doing incredibly well this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And a journey to St. David's is always worthwhile. It's always good fun. And then we get a side dishing one out at last on the bottom. So Neyland beat Tregaron 65-5. So, we dishing it out. But there's some really, really big scores in that league. Well, all down, really. Yeah. So where does that leave everybody? Langham are one place off the bottom with 5 points. Cardigan are 4 places off the bottom on 8 points. And then, so if we go up the table, then we go Quinns, St. David's, Neyland, Haverfordwest, Larne, Aberaeron, Lampeter, and then St. Clair's top of the table on 28 points. So, again, even for some of the teams mid-table, there's stuff to fight for there. There's probably 1, 2, 3, 4 teams at the top of the table. St. Clair's, Lampeter, Aberaeron, and Larne.
Yeah.
Like just starting to kind of build a bit of a distance. Yeah. And then
you got a middle 4.
Yeah. Well, you got Larne have got a game in hand. Lampeter have got a game in hand. And then like you say, you got the middle 4 that are between 16 and 10 points, and maybe even Cardigan on 8 points, but and then 3 at the bottom that are just fighting for it. But it's competitive. There's lots to play for. There's that Division 3 is essentially a Pembrokeshire league that it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top there, because that's the one that's developing our players locally. So
yeah, it is a really good division, and because it's the lowest division in the West, we are going to see some of these score lines on occasion. And I think the fact that they've split it to 3 West A and 3 West B instead of going 3-4 is the main cause of that. Because I think if we obviously, I know there's a lot of travel involved, and that is the main reason for the split. But if we took the top half from West A and West B and put them into one, and then the bottom halves, I think it'd be a lot less of these score lines.
Yeah,
and they'd both be ultra competitive still.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need. We need more competitive games. We need to know, when you're playing in a competitive game, and you know that every single game you're playing is important, it does give you that bit, that you do go training a bit more, you do put a bit more effort in. So yeah, that's looking good for local rugby. Do we want to do predictions for the coming week? Because I'll be honest, I haven't prepared it.
There's nothing this weekend now. It's for 2 weeks' time.
All right, that's okay then. That's why I haven't got anything prepared for this week.
Yeah, but the 2 games we got in 2 weeks' time are massively important. We will do them next week, but they are Aberystwyth and Dunvant and Tenby and Hoylecow, and they both are more or less straight shootouts for a place in the knockouts round in the division cups.
I was going to say it's cup
next.
Yeah, it's the cup in the next couple of weeks, isn't it? So, yeah. Okie doke. Well, that's looking good. So the only other bit then to have a little chat about is the return of Judgment Day and our feelings on that. So that's, I think, it's the last game of the season. I think they put it as, isn't it? What's your feelings on Judgment Day?
I think it's a missed opportunity more than anything. I don't know if you can remember it, but do you remember the Rugby League Millennium Magic weekends about 10, 15 years ago? The like 7 matches over the 2 days, and it was an awesome experience. And I think we could have done exactly the same thing here with the Principality Premiership teams. I think we could have had, the Scarlets region teams play the Dragons region teams in 3 games, then the Scarlets Dragons on day 1. And the same with the Ospreys and Cardiff teams, finishing with Ospreys Cardiff on day 2, and literally have 4 matches on both days. And you'd have filled the Principality on both days for that.
Both days, yeah. I think it's the idea is nice of having everybody together in the one place. The bit that annoys me with that is after the first game, everybody just goes home. If you're it used to be Cardiff and Ospreys in the first game, and then we'd play Dragons in the second game, and the stadium would be half empty for the second game. And you go, hang on, that's not what we do, boys.
No, but that's why I'd rather see it this way, and you have the big game at the end, so the big game's at the end, so you're there for your team at whatever time. Yeah, the stadium might only be half to three quarters full for the first few games, but come the last game, everyone's going to want to stick around for it.
Yeah, and I think that extended kind of thing kind of does make a day of it. It is more of a
festival feeling, eh?
Yeah, but it's based around the rugby, and like you say, with some of the internationals, not all of them. There are rugby people that go to those games, but I've been sat next to a bloody hen night on one of the games I went to, and to be honest, yeah, if I could have moved seats, I would have, just because they were doing my head in. They were enjoying it, they paid their ticket, same as me, but they weren't there to watch the rugby. Yeah, and I think that's what Judgment Day does bring, is it brings rugby people together into that stadium, and it should be a celebration. And whichever way, whoever plays first, we should go, right, stay till the second game, because everybody comes in for the first game. You have to be in for the first game. And if you put Cardiff on first, and half the Cardiff supporters that live in Cardiff can go, well, I can be home for the second game. I'll watch it at home. Do you know what I mean? If you're a Scarlet supporter and you've gone up to that game, so for me, that's getting up to Cardiff is 2 hours. Getting into Cardiff is another half hour. Getting into the stadium is another half hour on top of that. So it's a full day, whichever way I go. So if I'm going to go and watch one game, I'm going to stay there and watch the second game anyway. Yeah. So if that Scarlet Dragons game is on first, you'll get more Scarlets and Dragons supporters stay for the Cardiff and Ospreys game than you will the other way around, just because of the distances and practicalities more than anything. So
yeah, it is what it is when it comes to that. I mean, there's as great as the idea is, I don't think vast amount of thought is put into improving the product and how to really fill the stadium and put bums on seats, because you are expected to stay there if you're watching the second match like we normally are. You are there all day, so you are spending money.
Yeah.
So they've got to really make the fan experience that much better.
I would like to see it as the season kickoff. I'd like to see first game of the season is Judgment Day, and you go that first game, bang. This is a big. Do you know what I mean? You start the season with a load of people watching the games, and the bit that I think they miss is there's a massive amount of advertising opportunity and connection opportunity around the Millennium Stadium to say, come and watch the Scarlets more, come and watch the Ospreys more. Do you know what I mean? If you're doing it at that start of the season, you get a post all the way around the outside of the Millennium Stadium. Go in, sign up for your Scarlets ticket today. This is the next Scarlets game. This is the next Ospreys game, and you could build a better thing through the season. Yeah. I think when you leave it to the end of the season, you miss that opportunity.
Yeah, that the whole buzz, the whole positivity that comes from it is just lost instantly, because there's no way for them to follow it up.
Yeah, that's the end of the season. Your job done. Cheers, very much. Go home. We'll see you in 6 weeks' time. So there we go, my friend. That's another week done for us. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes from this weekend, and hopefully some good local games. I'm going to do my best I'm going to try and ease off the Guinness for this week's game. I can't make any promises, but I'll try and do the scores again after this week's.
Just for note, everyone listening, he's got his fingers crossed in the background.
Yeah. So fingers crossed it'll be a decent game this weekend, and we shall meet up again next week, my friend, and do the same thing again.
Yes, we shall, and there'll be a lot to talk about because there's a few more Scarlets again off the bench and on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I shall catch up with you again next week, my friend. All the best.
And to you. Drabat.
Cheers, Matt. Ta-da. You have been listening to the Westerer is Besterer podcast from the Scarlet Supporters PEMS team. You can follow us on Twitter on Scarlet PEMS, find us on Facebook with Scarlet Supporters Pembrokeshire, or email us on scarletspems@gmail.com. And remember, West is best, but Westerer is Besterer. Cheers.
Sports Social Podcast Network.